Today we're going to talk about smart objects in Adobe Photoshop CS5. Okay, in looking at smart objects, we're going to start by just creating a blank canvas here in Photoshop. Really doesn't matter what size. And we're going to look at two ways that we can get an image into that canvas. The first would be opening up this second file here, selecting it, copying it, and then pasting that into the new document. Now when we look at the layers palette of the new file, we can see that's just a regular layer like we've always done. If I take and transform that really small, apply it, and then decide later on I want to transform it back larger, look what starts to happen. We start interpolating the image and it's not as sharp as what we started. So if we look at the history palette real quick, we can see how sharp that was, and when we've done that transform in and out, it has come out really blurry. Okay, so let's see how that happens when we use this as a smart object. So this time, instead of opening up that second document, I'm just going to drag the image straight from Bridge. So I'm going to drag that in, and this time, instead of just applying it as a layer, it now, you'll notice, has a transform box around it with this X. This is our first indication that Photoshop is going to handle this layer differently. It's placing the layer in the new document, and if I just press enter or apply at this point, it renders that in and it looks like what we did before with the paste. However, if we look at our layers palette over here, we see we have a new icon on the layer. That indicates this is now a smart object. One of the advantages of a smart object is if I come in and transform this and make it, again, really small and apply that, but then decide later on that I want it bigger, so I transform it a second time, when I bring that back up, you notice it didn't get softer this time because it's not being interpolated because it's a smart object. So that's the first cool thing about smart objects, is you can size them larger or smaller and you really don't lose quality as you're going up or down. This time we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of just bringing over a JPEG, I'm going to drag over a raw file. So I've got this raw file right here in Adobe Bridge, and I'm just going to drag and drop that onto that same document that we started with earlier. Now you'll notice when I do that, it opens this file up in Adobe Camera Raw, and I can do all the things that I normally would do to adjust a raw file, adjust all the settings and so on and so forth, get everything looking the way I want, and just say OK. So you'll see it now gets a progress bar that says preparing a smart object, and then it continues with the place like we did earlier. And if I just press return or apply that, it's now placed as a smart object. I can do the same transform up and down like I did earlier, but the unique thing now is if I double click on this smart object layer, it opens that back up into Camera Raw, where I can do additional raw adjustments to that. Let's say I want to convert that to a black and white image and give it a specific type of tone look. I press OK, and it now has updated that image on that smart object layer. Because this is a raw file, I can open that back up again, come back into my HSL sliders and bring that back to color again, because it's just dealing with the XMP data of the raw file. So I can bring in a raw file and continue to do raw adjustments to that image on this canvas as I'm working. We're going to look at another characteristic of smart objects. So I have the smart object already embedded in my file, and I'm going to duplicate it 3 times by just pressing Control J or Command J if I'm on a Mac, and I'm going to move those layers around just a little bit and size that. So now you'll see I've got this image opened up or duplicated 3 times. So if I open up any one of those smart object layers and I come in and make an adjustment to it, so let's on this one just convert it to black and white. I'm then going to flatten that adjustment layer in, save it, which is going to update the smart object. It's not going to change my original file. And then I'm going to close that. You'll see it updated all 3 of those at the same time. So if I want to make one change, I can have it applied to 3 different images. Another thing that I could do is if I open that smart object up again, let's grab a brush and just put an X up here in the corner in red. Again, save that and close it. You'll see all three of those got updated the same. Our next version of this, once again, we're going to open up that smart object, and I'm going to drag over a totally different image, place it in there. So now I have two layers. You can see there's where I started, there's my new one. Again, flatten that down, save it, and close it. I have now updated that image to a new image 3 different times. That has some really unique characteristics when I start working with templates. So let's close this and open up another document that I've prepared. Another good use of smart objects is a product like this template product, where I have 12 different images open up in there. You can see each one is its own layer, and there is a shape over top of it. Instead of having to come in and replace all 12 of those at one time, I can open up just one of those smart objects, bring a new image over top of it, place it in there, get it scaled and everything the way it needs to be. And when I update that, it changes all 12 of those at one time. So it's a very quick way to update a template with a lot of different images. Okay, so I've showed you how if you bring an image in and you duplicate it by just pressing Command J, that all the layers are linked together, so if you make a change on one, it updates all of them. So how do you use a smart object in a similar manner if you don't want the layers linked together? The way to do that is to right-click and choose the option New Smart Object via Copy. So when I do that, I'm going to create a new smart object. So you now I see I have 2 of those in there. I can open up either one of those like I've done earlier, bring another image over top of it, go ahead and save and close that, and you can see this time the 2 layers are not linked together. So any change I do on one does not affect the second one. Again, to make that happen, just select the layer, right-click on the layer itself, and choose New Smart Object via Copy. And then when you open it up, it acts just like a regular smart object. When you bring an image in, it updates just that single one. To link them, press Control or Command J to duplicate. Then when you open up the smart object, putting in a new one, you can see it updates all the ones that are linked together. Well, hopefully that gave you some neat ideas for using smart objects in your workflow.